Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Before we get started, I want to show you something that I would recommend to just about anyone to get. It is a book called The Complete Medicinal Herbal. This is a great book to put in your prepping gear and just to have around the house on the homestead to learn about natural herbal medicine and how they work. This thing has over 250 remedies. It has over 100 different herbs that it lists in it, and while there are many, dozens of really good books on herbal medicine out there, this one here kind of puts it all together. So it lists different herbs that you can have in your area, how to identify them, what they're used for, and then in the back it tells you how to make the things. It has how to make everything from tinctures to syrups to teas, and how to preserve them. It's all back here. This thing covers just about everything and every kind of illness, or at least the major ones. So this is a great starter book, but it's also really good for the intermediate and the more advanced in herbal medicine. And I will leave a link to the description below. You can pick it up for only $15.99 right now, which is not a bad price. All right, let's get on with it. There have been, over the past few days, some on this channel leaving comments, and I have seen it elsewhere, that we're blowing all of this out of proportion, that the Great Reset really can't be that bad, that there's just no way that Democrats, Republicans, the left, anyone else is truly trying to push us into a communist type of governance. There's just no way that there really is this new world order of a cabal of men and women trying to rule us. That's just absolutely absurd. And if it is true, that's way down the line. I mean, we're talking decades, maybe generations down the line. You can't just overnight take a free nation and turn it into, a tyranny and absolute control, can you? I would argue with you that you're wrong. Let me read to you, to start off with, some facts and a timeline of a nation just south of us called Venezuela. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. Probably most of you have heard about the regime changes and how the economy has crashed and what has happened to the people down there. But I'm not so sure that everyone is aware of the actual timeline of Venezuela. In 1992, Venezuela became the third largest economy and third richest economy in the Western Hemisphere. They weren't some little third world nation down there where people were just living in squalor and poor and starving, and so they welcomed anything, even communism, when it came to them. This nation was quite prosperous. In fact, so much so that in 1997, they were the second largest purchaser of Ford F-150 pickups. That's right. They were driving around in brand new pickups down there. 2001, they voted for the socialist president, and they voted for him on the platform of income inequality. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? In 2001. In 2004, they socialized their healthcare system. Oh, it was great. Free healthcare for everyone. Everyone got healthcare. Totally free, right? In 2007, they socialized higher education. That's right. You could go to college for free. Didn't have to pay for it. Everyone got a college degree for free. It was great. In 2009, they banned private ownership of guns because they were becoming such a utopian society that there really wasn't any need for guns anymore. I mean, they had free health care, free education, they were wealthy. Why, what's the need of guns anymore? So everyone just turned their guns in. In 2012, our own Bernie Sanders praised Venezuela, calling them the American dream. That's right. They had quite already fulfilled it. They were on their way to utopian society as being the American dream. In 2014, they imprisoned opposition leaders, political parties, and politicians that were opposing the ruling Communist Party. They imprisoned them. In 2016, they had food and health care shortages. I covered it on this channel. That's how long I've been around on this channel. We covered it, of how people were starving in the streets, how they were beating each other up for a loaf of bread. They were trying to get clean water. In fact, the Venezuelan diet is a thing. Look it up, where the people are starving to death so much that they're losing weight, and they call it the Venezuelan diet. In 2017, the Constitution and elections were suspended. That's right, we don't need those anymore. You don't need rights. You don't need a free society. Why, we've got it taken care of for you. We've given you everything you need for free, so why do you need that kind of stuff? And in 2019, they massacred unarmed citizens. In 27 years, they went from being the third wealthiest nation in the Western Hemisphere to being a nation that they were massacring their starving citizens in the street. It happened almost overnight, in one generation. In one generation, folks, they went from being one of the biggest to absolute chaos and death and starvation and murder. And I'm sure that 27 years ago, no one in Venezuela would have said, oh, that's where we're headed. Why, look at us. We're the biggest. We're the biggest in South America. We're one of the wealthiest in the country, in the world. We're the third wealthiest in the Western Hemisphere. I mean, we have reached a pinnacle of society. Why, let's distribute this evenly amongst the people. Because no one would ever think that they would fall into the disarray, into the tyranny that they see today. I'm not saying that that is exactly how it will transpire here, because in fact, we've already crossed some of the thresholds that they have. What I'm saying is that things repeat themselves. History is not filled with new creation. It's really just filled with the same things over and over again. There's nothing new under the sun. And we as Americans many times have the audacity to think that because we're the biggest and the best, that we're extremely secure in our freedom, that nothing can take us down, that we don't have to worry about that kind of stuff that happens in other countries, because that would never happen here. I mean, we're America. We're Americans. We fight for our freedom, right? Oh, it's okay to have a little bit of that come into our society. It's okay to tax us to where it's so overbearing. It's okay to redistribute the wealth. It's okay to do that kind of stuff. Because we're America. We can stand through it. We can handle it. Can we? This is a question we need to be asking ourselves. Can we handle it? Can we continually allow this kind of tyranny, this kind of mentality, this kind of evil into our society? This is not about left versus right. This isn't about Republicans versus Democrats. This isn't about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. It's not really about that. What this is about retaining the freedom that we deserve. That's what we should have. Humans have fought for eons against the powers of controlling them. All the way back to the kings and the feudal systems and the great empires of old. Humans have always been trying to fight for their freedom, trying to fight for some independence. This is as old as time itself. We fought for that here in this nation about 250 years ago. And for some reason, we decided that we had reached that pinnacle, that we had created some level of a utopian society, that we were once and for all in history safe and secure in our freedoms. this is not so. And because of this thinking, that's what's led us here today. Because we've sat back for far too long, believing that our freedom is secure. That no matter what gets elected into office, no matter what gets passed into law, no matter how many steps downward our society takes, how far away from morality and God we go, that it doesn't matter because we have secured our place in history as a free and independent society. And so because of that, generation after generation has sat by and allowed this ever-increasing monster to begin to devour little bits at a time our freedom. Until it's to the point now that there's so little left of it that it almost doesn't even resemble what it once was. There's this facade that we are still the biggest and the best and the most free. But down to the heart of it, it's not there anymore. Some say it's not worth fighting for anymore, that we should just allow it to collapse and deal with what's left after the ashes settle. And maybe that is the best way. Or maybe it's better to stand and fight and try to rebuild and redirect what's here. To be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure where I am at on that. Every day I can tell you this, I tend to lean more towards it's probably beyond the point of fixing. Does that mean that we give up? Does that mean we allow ourselves to become Venezuela where they're shooting us in the streets? Where we're starving, where we're beating each other up over a loaf of bread or a bottle of water or a little bit of medicine? No, I don't think so. What I do think is that we have to stop depending on government or even believing that the government is there to protect our freedoms. While you and I may not think of the government as someone that puts food on our table or a roof over our head like some people do, we still look to government and the system that's there as the thing that protects our freedom. And maybe that's where we've really gone wrong. It doesn't matter who gets elected into office. It doesn't matter who's running the Congress. It doesn't matter what they say on TV. The only thing that truly protects our freedom is each other. The only ones that are truly obligated to ensure that our existence and our children's existence is under freedom. That's us. So much like we complain that the left depends upon government for their livelihood, for jobs, for bills to get paid, for food on their table, and we poo-poo that, oh, that's just socialism. We don't want socialism, it's welfare. But don't you and I do the same thing? Because we're dependent upon whoever's in office to make sure that we're free. You and I are free regardless of who's in office. Well, there may be some that could use force to try to take away that freedom, but you're only as free as you're free in your mind. Really, that's where true freedom starts, up here. And once that you know that you're free in your mind, then you just have to act it out. You have to live a free lifestyle. You have to stand your ground and resist tyranny at all times. Because that's the fight that we're really in. It's not a fight of the left versus right or conservatism versus liberalism. It's not communism versus anarchism and capitalism and all the other isms or Nazism or Trumpism or whatever. That's really not what the battle is. When it comes down to it, it's a battle of freedom versus tyranny. The same battle that humans have been fighting for hundreds and thousands of years. And we've had the luxury, the privilege for, say, 250 years to not have to fight that battle anymore. But I'm afraid that that day of being able to calmly sit by and know that even though it's getting a little worse, we are still a free society. I'm not talking about taking up arms. I mean, it could come to that. I'm not talking about going out and protesting in the streets in support of one candidate or another, or one ideology over another. You can do that if you want to, and maybe it'll help. What I'm talking about is in your everyday life, choosing to live the way that we know that we have been given and endowed by our Creator. It's risky. It is a animated contest, as it was once put. There is always the risk to freedom. It's not safe. If you want something that's safe, then, well, socialism is probably the safer option. You may not like what you get in the end, but the journey through it is usually pretty safe. Whereas freedom has a lot of risks. When you take all the responsibility for your life upon yourself and do not relinquish that to some other greater entity, then what that means is that your entire life, your entire existence, your livelihood, your safety, and your security all rests on your shoulders and yours alone. Now, what we can do is we can spread that out on a micro level, within our own community, within our own tribes, within our own mags, whatever you want to call them, and that works just fine. But the only way to truly combat what is happening right now in the United States and across this planet is to resist tyranny. That's what we must do. So while you're learning every day about the newest, latest election news, or learning what billionaire has made some speech about changing and resetting the environment or income inequality, know that in the end, really, the only thing that matters is you choosing to live your life completely free. And if enough of us resist this system, resist this takeover, resist this technology, resist the lies, history has shown that in the end, while it may be a rough go, that resistance on its own can be enough to secure your freedom for a little while longer. And my personal belief is I would rather face that battle now in my lifetime than to pass that responsibility on to my children. I feel as a father, a husband, that that's just my duty, to not push aside the responsibility of securing freedom to the next generation. So, when you're talking to your friends and they're saying, yeah, it may be getting bad, but it's not that bad yet. There's still some time. There's still time. I mean, you know, we've gotten more to the left. We've gotten more controlling. Big Brother's always growing, but hey, we're still pretty free, right? Right? Remind them of Venezuela and the timeline and how rapidly in just a 27-year period they went from being such a prosperous and free nation to being murdered on the streets. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.